Let's slowly rank the above from bad to nightmare. Number 10. Strappado. Just like today, thefts were common in the Middle Ages. And even if you had nothing to do with it, if you accidentally got involved, well, you're screwed.
Fuck.
You would find yourself hanging in the air. They would tie your wrists at an awkward angle and hang you by your waist from a pole. At first, this wasn't to kill the criminal, but more to get information out of them. However, even if you insisted you had nothing to do with it, the officers probably wouldn't believe you. At this point, the pain you would feel for not telling the truth would increase little by little, and then a bit more, and then even more. Your shoulder would probably dislocate, but that's nothing, because having your spine broken is one of the most painful things you could ever experience. Oh, and you'd probably end up paralyzed too. You might think, but the prisoner could pull their weight toward themselves so their shoulder doesn't dislocate and their spine doesn't break. That's true, but since the prisoner might be hanging there for days, they would eventually get tired, and their shoulder would dislocate, and their spine would break. Oof, we can all guess that's going to be pretty painful, but that's not all that could happen to you. Since your spine is broken, you could die from internal bleeding before the torture even ends, or your ribs might stab into your vital organs. You'd feel unbearable pain, and after a while die from internal bleeding. Or, if you're really lucky, you'd die of thirst or hunger. Even worse, you could be forgotten there. Your life would completely depend on the officers assigned to you. So, at worst, even if you somehow didn't die, you could be left hanging there until your skeleton is visible. Strappado wasn't just done this way either. In another method, they'd hang the criminal from their waist at a great height and then drop them from that height, over and over, until the prisoner confessed to their crime. Every time they hit the ground, their bones would break, their teeth would fall out, and they would probably suffer internal bleeding or a concussion. Compared to the first one, you can really die in this one. Number 9. Scaphism. Scaphism was one of the most brutal, painful, and horrifying torture methods. It was known as a punishment used by the Greeks and Persians. This brutal punishment was inflicted on sailors who committed crimes at sea, typically those who stole or acted violently, and it often resulted in death. The criminal would be tightly tied to a boat by their limbs and force-fed milk and honey. Oh, being fed with quality products. Sounds nice, right? Okay, this part doesn't sound that bad. But after being force-fed milk and honey until they were covered in it, the diet caused severe diarrhea. The prisoner would vomit and have foul-smelling diarrhea, which stayed trapped in the wooden compartment, creating a horrific stench. If the guards weren't satisfied with the amount of vomit, the unfortunate prisoner would be smeared with even more milk and honey and left under the blazing sun near stagnant water, where flies, decay, and sweetness would attract insects to the prisoner's rotting body. Later, due to the decay and rotting of the feces, rodents, insects, wasps, flies, and other animals from around the lake were drawn to him, entering his intestines and starting to consume his body. After being tortured by the animals all day, the decrease in insects toward dawn due to the fading stench might give the impression that it's finally over.
No!
But the next day, the guards fed the prisoner more milk and honey, smearing it over their rotting body. And so, the day's torture began anew. When the man was clearly dead, the guards approached the boat and saw that his flesh had been eaten by rodents. His face swarmed with wasps, and vile creatures had hunted him down, with parasites growing inside him. Worms crawled out of his stomach, and he was covered in his own filth. In this manner, Mithridates finally died after 17 days of suffering. Number 8. Blood eagle. The blood eagle is one of the worst torture methods in human history. This ritual punishment, shown in the Viking series, was reserved for the most terrible crimes, such as killing a king, or for enemies of Viking society. Often in the Colosseum, the victim chosen for the blood eagle would kneel down and be tightly bound to wooden posts by their arms. First, an eagle figure was drawn on the victim's back. So far, it doesn't look too bad, but then the victim's back was cut along the spine. I can't imagine how painful that would be. After the executioner cut some back muscles, they would reach the ribs, break the victim's ribs, and pull them open to the sides. Things definitely started to get disgusting. However, even if the victim doesn't die by this point, they will likely go into shock and suffer internal bleeding from the broken ribs, leading to death. Finally, the executioner would reach the lungs and pull them out, creating a shape that looked like the open wings of an eagle. I don't know which crazy sadist imagined this, but this is what was called the blood eagle. Some sources recorded that in the final stage, the lungs were also salted. Honestly, I don't know why they did this. The victim would definitely die as a result of this painful and lengthy procedure, usually due to a combination of organ damage, shock, and blood loss. Number 7. The rat bowl and tube. This is one of the most disgusting punishments in human history using rats. This torture is done in two different ways. I will explain both here. The first method is a torture technique that appeared in 1568 during the 80 Years' War. It is recorded that the Dutch leader Diederik Sonoy often used this punishment, which involved placing a rat in a clay bowl and putting it on the prisoner's stomach, face, or groin. After placing the bowl, he would heat it with a torch or coal. The only way for the rat, which gets hot and panics inside, is to enter the human body. The rat, entering the prisoner's body, tears everything apart while desperately searching for a way out. In the end, the rat finds a way out and survives. The same cannot be said for the prisoner. But the second method was much, much worse. It was very secret because it was used by Augusto Pinochet, who held power from 1976 to 1983. They called it the rectoscope. Okay, I'm sure you understand where this is going. Yes, exactly what you're thinking. They placed a tube at the prisoner's back door, put a rat inside, closed the lid, and started heating the tube. These people were so sick that they expected the prisoner to answer questions while this was happening. After a while, the rat inside would find the exit and start moving through there. We don't know how many people died from this torture, but we do know that hundreds of people disappeared during his rule. Number 6. Iron Maiden. The terrifying and well-known Iron Maiden is thought to have been a torture device used since the Middle Ages, but the oldest evidence found dates back to 1793. Authorities mostly used this cruel invention to force confessions, punish suspects, and create fear in the minds of potential criminals. The Iron Maiden looked like a tall, upright cabinet or tomb, richly decorated on the inside with threatening spikes. Once inside, the subject was trapped in an upright position, able to move very little due to carefully placed restraints. The Maiden's door closed, and spikes designed to avoid vital organs pierced the victim's flesh, leaving them in severe pain and with serious puncture wounds. It was said that the spikes were positioned to intentionally extend the victim's suffering rather than killing them instantly. But I think there is a flaw in this logic because not every prisoner is the same height. If one of the spikes hits the heart or brain, the prisoner would die instantly. If you want to get out of there fast, say, "Why did you kill the king?" Why won't he answer? Open the gates! Oh! I am sure that such a scene happened in history. Haha, but I cannot prove it. Let's rank them. First is the Strappado. Compared to the others, we know this one seems much more harmless. It goes to the bad category. Second is Scaphism. If it didn't last for 17 days, I would have put it in the dreadful category. But since this torture involves bugs crawling over you and eating your flesh every day, it goes straight to nightmare. Third is the Blood Eagle. We all assume this torture wouldn't last more than a day, but still, being cut alive seems quite painful. It goes to dreadful. Fourth is the rat bowl and tube. No one wants a rat entering through their back door. No need to explain more. It goes to nightmare. Fifth is the Iron Maiden. Honestly, it looks like the same thing as being stabbed to death. So it goes to the bad category. In this video, we ranked the 5 tortures. Don't forget to turn on notifications and like the video to see the next 5 tortures in the next video. It's really motivating. Thanks in advance.